Turn off all your
Call
volume.
from a constituent at 8:03 this morning saying, I saw my commissioner on. Now you know him.
See you, Don.
So, is this the packet?
I
Or,
think that's for next
that's
week.
next, the work
next,
session?
Next week.
Next week, yeah. Mm-hmm, that's it?
Streamlined.
I'm kinda gonna like it here.
It's all right.
Yeah, I think I could take that.
Okay, we all ready?
Yeah.
Okay, work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. First item is to discuss the formal agenda, and we do have an amendment to the formal agenda. Item 7A will be added to the business agenda, which will be the emergency declaration due to homelessness. I think we should all have a copy of that
I need a pen.
in front of us.
Thank you.
So when it comes to the regular meeting, we'll need to make that motion to add item 7A to the business agenda. Any other comments, questions on the agenda this evening?
No comment?
Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. First topic is the Child Care Task Force on page 3 of our packet. I know Dan Gaffney is here, who's been the program manager. Dan's been fantastic, and I'm glad that you're able to come and present to not just us, but to many of the organizations that have been watching carefully what the Child Care Task Force is doing, and certainly been in able hands with your leadership. So, Dan, I'll go ahead and turn it over directly to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity and your support. It's been critical. You stimulated this with the support that you gave us back in when was it, July? And it's been a remarkable progress in that time. And it's not just about me; it's about the whole group that's put their shoulder to the grindstone and made it happen. You received in your packet a summary of what's happened in the first quarter, and that quarter ended, as far as we were concerned, in December. There's been other developments since then, which have been very positive, but I just want to highlight a few things. That first off, this effort came about because of the desire by the county to address child care needs back in 2021. There was a lot of talk, a lot of research that went into it, and then in 2022, in the middle of 2022, funds came together. Prior to that, I said, I'm not the guy to lead it, but when it came together, I said, okay, I'll do it for 6 months. We're into 8 months now, but life is good. We were able to get applications out to many child care providers throughout the county with the help of Child Care Resource Referral. The director of that in our region is Eva Manderson. She's been a great partner in this all along, as has been Dorothy Spence, who leads the Early Learning Hub for our region. When the request came in, we got 15 applications asking for a total of $380,000, and we had 275 to administer. So we went through with a committee and screened those and tried to figure out, okay, who's really addressing the things that we've laid out as priorities, to be licensed or to be pursuing licensing, to make themselves available to families of all incomes and nationalities, cultures, et cetera. We helped some of them reach out and get aligned with employment-related daycare funds from the state. so as to make that affordable to some of our lower income families. We actually ended up offering funds to 12 of the 15 applicants. Of those, one actually said, you know, we're going to go a different route. And I think it's because some of the things we were asking them to do in terms of really being open and go from there. So of the 12 that we offered funds to, 9 of them were existing child care providers and 3 of them were new. So that was a win right off the bat to expand the amount of care that we have in Clatsop County. 2 of them I would refer to as moderate-sized centers. So Bumble being one, Sunset Empire Parks and Rec being another. Centers of around 70 kids or so. We had 3 smaller centers, 4 in-home providers, and then there were 2 that provide frequent, I'll call them science-related opportunities. So kind of an after-school thing, but it was also open. One of them also opens up to kids that are preschool. And so that was a nice, diverse group, and we wanted to have that kind of diversity so that families have choices. What we learned from the initial data that they gave us in October, we asked them about, you know, are you offering child care to infants, to toddlers, to preschools, and to after-school cares, so school-age folks. And so we got a sense of what was going on there, how many slots they had, those types of things. And at that point in time, of the 246 children that were being served, 26% were receiving some kind of financial support. So we felt like that was a good start, whether that be scholarships or ERD funds or some other kind of support. With the funding that you provided, Providence and CMH both stepped up with funds. With Providence's funds came some additional support in the way of data collection and analysis from an organization called CORE, or the Center for Outcomes Research and Education. I meet with them monthly for about an hour. We exchange information in between those meetings, and they've been really helpful in terms of helping us determine what kind of data we want to gather to measure the outcomes that we stated. We have some experience on our team in terms of data collection and analysis, but these folks bring a fresh set of eyes, and it's been really beneficial. At the end of the first quarter, so roughly 10 to 12 weeks after grants had been received, we gathered data again. Along with the funds, though, I should back up and say along with the funds came the opportunity and the requirement to participate in what we refer to as support. So that was something that actually had been piloted prior to our project getting going. That's a 5-session class with individual advising between each of those 5 sessions for the providers in terms of how to run a business, and this is designed specifically for child care providers. It's done in part with Jessica Newhall from our community college, the Small Business Development Association, and Eva Manderson from Child Care Resource and Referral. They had piloted this beforehand. It was successful. They worked with 6 people during that first cohort. We said, hey, you're up for a challenge. We got them. There were 12 people involved in this one, plus I think a couple from another county. And so if you can imagine having those individual sessions in between time, those folks were busy providing that advising. And just last night we had an advisory committee meeting, got a report from them, and they said that attendance has been great. The advising sessions have been really fruitful. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this by saying that not all those that we funded were as successful as they had hoped. when they applied for and received the funds. Some struggled to get enough kids. And through that advising and through some conversation, they adjusted their plan, and instead of looking at potentially closing, they're expanding.
Yeah.
They're filling those slots. And I'm sorry, I got the goosebumps right now because this is really exciting. And it's just the groundwork. It's just the beginning. Families that we're serving, again, the first quarter reports, 33% of them are at 300% of the poverty level and below. 42% are above. We need to do a better job of gathering this information, explaining to the families why we want this information, because we had 25% that chose not to report that. So we'll work on that and make that better. 63% were white, 13% were identified as other than white, and we do have the breakdowns on that too. But again, 24% chose not to respond to those questions. So we'll work on improving that so that we do make sure that we're serving our diverse community, our diverse county, both income-wise and culturally, racially wise. Our financial assistance increased from 26% to 34%. We were able to see some providers be able to offer pay raises so that the pay to providers, to managers, got more in line with each other. Because there were some that basically, I know of one case where a provider left one of our grantees to go work for another because they could make more money. And so what we're trying to do is avoid that so that we offer stable child care in all of our providers. The other thing that we saw was, in addition to strengthening families, we had a lot of professional growth opportunities that people took part in. We had all 11 programs involved in strengthening business. Actually, some of them sent more than one representative there. We also provided, with our grant, we provided a subscription to a software program called Wonder School. And Wonder School is designed specifically for child care providers to help them do the business stuff that they really didn't get in the business for. They got in the business because they care about kids. They didn't get in the business because they're great business people oftentimes. And they didn't necessarily have that strong business background. So strengthening business provides some of that, but this Wonder School program helps them with their billing, with the payment of their bills, doing their payroll, doing attendance, a variety of things. And there's other programs like this that are out there. And we said, if you already got a program you're happy with, that's cool, that's fine, keep using it. But what's interesting is, again, just last night we learned that some of them have said, you know what, Wonder School does more for me than that other program did. Another provider said that software program is going to save me $300 to $600 per month. That's a good step in the right direction. And those are the kinds of things that we're excited about. And this is just in the first quarter, in the first 3 months. We've also had 48 of our providers. I think there's, my memory's right, it's either 71 or 77 different providers within our 11 programs that we funded. So we're talking in those larger centers, smaller centers, in-home providers. I think there's in the 70s. And 48 of them have participated in what they call oral classes. That's the Oregon Registry online classes that helps them move up the state scale for pay. And then we had another 27 that participated either in college classes or in workshops that were related to child care. Developments. I already talked about the strengthening business. New program manager. Like I said, I signed on to do this for 6 months, and now I'm into 8 months. But we were able to successfully find a very, very good replacement, and we're going through the final stages of hiring. There's a background check going on. References were absolutely glowing. And she would be here tonight, but she had a conflict. Her name is Kristen Friend, Freund. She lives in Cannon Beach, has been involved in CASA in the Portland area for years before she moved out here, doing training. She currently does some mediation work for families that are going through divorce in terms of advocating for the children, in terms of what's best for the children. So she's got a great heart, which I think is going to transfer very nicely into what we're doing. We're preparing to do a survey of all of our owners and providers to get their feedback on how things have gone and what do they need, how much of their funds are still there, and are they having any hurdles that we're not aware of? Because we don't want to do this from a top down. We want this to be a full group of people working together. Our providers have been great to work with, but I'll also say that our advisory committee has been wonderful to work with. We've got the right people together that looks at our community, has the connections with our community, in such vital ways. And I'll use Kevin Leahy as an example. When this first got started, he put me and Jessica Newhall in front of all of the members of CEDAR. And we got a chance to present our program. And from that, we had multiple inquiries about how can we as a business be involved in this. We haven't officially gone out seeking funds from them, but we will. Even without asking, I'll use Northwest Natural as an example. They approached me and said, let me learn a little bit more about this. And before the end of 22, they had some funds that they wanted to allocate to improve our community, and they did so locally, but they also reached out to their Portland office, and they contributed funds as well. I was able to write a grant to Oregon Community Foundation to a specific donors project. I didn't go seeking that grant. OCF reached out to Dorothy Spence and myself, and Dorothy says, well, I got this one, but what's going on in Clatsop County probably is a better fit. And so I talked with them, and they said, put in an application for $20,000, and we received that. That was a nice Christmas present. And so, again, it's those kinds of things, those kinds of connections that are paying off. We had an opportunity to meet with, at that time, potential Governor Kotek. She's now our governor, as we all know. She came to Clatsop County just before the election wanting to meet with child care providers. I was invited to be a part of that, as were parents, and she heard from us. And I know that's one of the pieces that she continues to talk about as she looks at her future agenda. We also have a connection with U.S. Representative Bonamici. With Eva Manderson is on a group that Representative Bonamici meets with basically every time she's in Oregon. And so we have an advocate there. And so as we do this work, we're also advocating to the state and the feds to step up and do what they need to do to fund quality, affordable child care for the long haul. I'm going to stop there and respond to any questions you may have, because these folks know I could go on and on forever. So,
well, I just want to say, and I think you summarized everything very well. I think going back, it was easy to just say, well, we've got a real issue, we've got a problem, we can't meet the need. We could go out and, like you just said, ask our state and federal, representatives and organizations for help. But it's another thing to actually do something and take action, and that's exactly what happened here. And Dan, you were the catalyst for so much of this, your background as an educator, and of course your passion for early childhood education and for working with Preschool Promise and other organizations. That's what kept this thing going. And certainly the right team was assembled, and I think you just mentioned about all of the players. That's what's, that's what's kind of special about it, is that we got the right people that got involved in it.
And that's why this has been as successful as it's been. We've had some great efforts in the past.
Yeah.
And we've done some good work. But this has taken it to another level.
Yeah, completely agree. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Everything he said and more. The only slight amendment I would make, Jennifer Purcell was critical in this. When she was with the Office of Regional Solutions, she came to me and said, we want to do childcare things in Clatsop County. She worked with me and you and some other folks, and then we passed it along, but she's now with the HEC, the Higher Education Coordinating Committee. We need to thank Jennifer for that as well. She was absolutely key to this, and grateful to her every single day for the wonderful work that you and my colleagues and all of the community members have carried on. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I agree. Commissioner Banks?
Well, I have some really, really, vivid memories in my brain of us sitting in Zoom meetings in our, for me, it was summertime in my bedroom, kids. And there was 5 of us, 6 of us in the room sometimes, just kind of circling the ball. And I remember distinctly a conversation that I had with you, but also with you, Dan, about we just need to, do something. Yep. And we kicked that ball through the door, and I am so pleased to see where it's gone. I'm so pleased with your leadership that you've had in this entire endeavor. It would not have come to fruition without all of your connections and without all of your just experience and your hopes and your dreams. Because I came in with hopes and dreams from a parental perspective of I don't ever want a mother to have to go through what I went through and having to make a choice to leave her job. But you came in with this wealth of knowledge and experience of having tried and continued pushing forward, your relationships with the school districts, the relationships that you've had with ESD. This wouldn't have happened without you, Dan. And I want to express my gratitude to you. And I also want to say that some really great things came out of that pandemic, and this is one of them. I always circle back to the glass being half full, and these ARPA funds, we would have never, as a county, been able to allocate that much funding towards an individual need like we did with these ARPA funds in childcare. And so, yeah, something really amazing came out of this pandemic, and I'm hoping that mothers will never, fathers even, I don't want to leave the dads out, will ever have to make the decision that I made to have to quit my career or put my career on hold for such a long period of time. And so it's going to lead to mental health for parents. It's going to lead to so many wonderful things. So I just want to say thank you.
Very, very welcome.
Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, thank you. I was particularly happy to hear that you had talked with some business people, because I think that's kind of the next outreach.
Yep.
Because we hear from them, as well as their complaints about workforce and housing, et cetera. Childcare is a huge issue for them. And I know with our tourism economy, where we have lots of people working at night, that's a particularly, that's kind of an unavailable part of the whole problem. So I hope we can do that. I hope we can do kind of a really aggressive outreach to businesses, because I think they understand that they have a dog in this fight.
They do, and I'm pleased to say that at least one of our grantees does provide overnight childcare. Not very many, because they're not very big, but it's a start.
That's
one of the members of our committee is representative from the U.S. Coast Guard, and got me involved in a conversation with our new base commander, who is very, very encouraging of what we're doing and wants to be a part of that. So
yeah. And that will expand, I think, in the future, especially with the fast cutters coming. So so go forward. We look forward to your replacement. No,
yes.
That's not. No,
yes.
That's not possible. There isn't anybody who could replace you. But I hope you'll kind of hang out with this effort.
Oh, that's definitely in the plans.
Okay.
I have my wife's permission.
Well, that's very important. No retirement for you yet.
Yes. Oh no, it's retirement, but I will always be busy with something like this.
Thank you so much, Dan.
You're welcome.
This
Thank
is
you.
just, I've never you know, I always tell my constituents who are impatient that nothing happens quickly in government, and you don't want it to. But this time,
Yeah.
I mean, we almost got ourselves in a little trouble here because we did something so fast that we may have to live up to this momentum.
I think there's somebody referred to as there's a good kind of trouble, and this is one.
This, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Coach Gaffney, you're not allowed to retire fully.
right.
I have a soccer team
I-
awaiting you. They're very cute.
Agreed.
Any other comments, questions? No, thank you very much, Dan.
Very much.
You have our deepest gratitude for everything you've done, and we're glad you're not going to
Have an advocate
be
here,
leaving
too.
us, and you'll be part of the group, so, yeah. Thanks
All right,
again, Dan.
thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I want to say hallelujah. Yes, just-
Kick the field goal. Yeah.
yeah.
Why is my husband calling me?
I don't know, he's going to have to wait, because
He's gonna have to wait.
we've got brownfields to talk about. So, brownfields community outreach on page 7, and I'll turn it over to our Assistant County Manager, Monica Steele.
Thank you, Chair and Board. Way back in November of 2021, the county applied for, prior to November, we started meeting with some community stakeholders in the cities of Astoria, Seaside, Warrenton, and Kevin Leahy from Cedar, in regards to applying for a brownfield grant. And so we submitted that application in November of 2021, and then in May of 2022, we were notified that we were awarded the $500,000 grant. We came to your board back in October, and with your approval, we contracted after an RFP process with Stantec, and they are a qualified environmental professionals service group, as well as we have an MOU with Colpac to provide the technical support on the work plan for this grant. And so now we're coming before you because we wanted to let you know that we're getting started on the community engagement piece of this. And so when we met back in 2021, stakeholders groups just kind of identified some properties that were known to have had some sort of contamination, whether that be from being a dry cleaner, being a former gas station or mechanic station, or being a dilapidated building that might have some sort of lead or other chemicals inside of it. So this list of approximately 14 sites was developed, and some of these are privately owned properties and some of them are publicly owned properties. And so that was just to kind of get us started through the application process. So now, through the community engagement process, we want to educate people on what brownfields are and help people understand that brownfields are opportunity fields. It's not something that's to be thought of necessarily as a bad thing, but as an opportunity. And here in the city of Astoria, the Mill Pond housing development as well as the Garden of Surging Waves are both former brownfield sites that are now providing housing as well as just kind of a historical place as well as a park. And so we're going to be starting on February 23rd at 5:30 p.m. We'll be having a meeting here. This initial meeting is just to kind of help people understand what a brownfield is, educate them on what the nomination process looks like. And so we will be reaching out to those properties that were originally identified and asking them if they would like to participate through this process. If not, then that's fine, as well as just reaching out to the community to find out if there's other individuals who either would like to nominate their property or would like to nominate a property that they're aware of. And then start the engagement process with the property owner. Because if the property owner is not interested in developing this for economic development purposes or for housing purposes, which is what we identified in our grant, then we will thank them and move on. The $500,000 typically allows us to provide the initial services for about 12 properties. And so that will allow us over the next I believe it ends in 2026, over the next several years, to start working on each of these properties, going through the phase 1, phase 2, and also identifying, sorry, I'm checking my notes. Phase 1, phase 2, remedial action plans, and the quality assurance projects plans, as well as any sampling and analysis plans, that would need to be, assessed to move the project forward, to implement the project. So, we're just getting started. We're getting the community to kind of come together. We've already had one individual who, when this announcement came out in May, reached out to me at that point in time, so he is planning to be engaged in a part of this process. We encourage the board to be here as well, or, you know, ask us any questions that you might have. We're posting, we have a web link, or a page link on our website, and so there will be information as we continue to move through this process that will continue to be posted there for people to go to get the nominations forms. They can review what the grant application looks like. And then it also links, Colpack is also having a brownfield link on their page as well, since they're working with us on this. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have about the process. I can't speak to all the technical terms, that's why we hired Stantec, but that's the stuff that they'll be talking about in this initial engagement meeting as well.
Yeah, thank you, Assistant County Manager. Commissioner Banks?
Well, I love this topic. Brownfields shouldn't be something to fear. They should be something that we need to fix, and then utilize. And so I'm really looking forward to this conversation continuing. Curiosity, and you may not have the answer to this. I know living in a small rural community, a lot of people have a lot of history here. How are we, or is there a process for identifying whether or not a brownfield is a true, like, they're going to go through an EPA process, correct, to identify whether or not it's a true brownfield and not just a rumor of it?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
and then they also have a database with some information on it as well, historical information that goes back to, you know, early 1900s and such. And so yeah, some of the properties that are on this list already were properties that were known through that database. And so, for example, the one that is listed in Astoria above Tongue Point, that was the former naval housing.
Yep.
And so.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, when I met with the county manager earlier this week, I asked him about what that database looked like, and he sent me a copy of it. Would it be possible for you to send that to all the board members? Because it was very helpful.
Yeah, I can send that.
An actual list with along with a map, and I found it very, very useful.
It's this here, and when I got that information for him to give to you, I am working with PJ, and so the communications team is also getting that up on the website. So when you look at it, and we'll clean it up some to make it a little bit easier to read, because can you read it from here? And so because when we went through this process with Colpack, they are also assisting Tillamook and Columbia counties. So this list does include those counties as well. And so we can clean it up to just focus on the Clatsop County properties, and then there's also a map. And so as you can tell from this, there is one property that is down south. It's at the junction of Seaside and Cannon Beach. And then the majority of the properties are here in Astoria and Warrenton that were identified.
Commissioner Webb?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So is this database considered finished? I mean, what happens, as Commissioner Bangs mentioned, you know, if somebody comes and says, well, you know, my neighbor had an oil tank underground 100 years ago.
Are you referring to this? So
no.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was. Is that final, or can this process accommodate that allegation that a property has soil on it?
So when we get the properties that people are interested in, participating on through that nomination form, then Stantec will start the work in reaching out, and there are certain criteria that will have to be completed that the property owner will be filling out. And so I can't speak to all of what the details of that criteria are, but it does take them through a process. So just because somebody is, saying, oh, well, my neighbor has been doing, these things on their property, that's not going to just, there's a whole list of criteria that they're going to have to mark off. And additionally, one thing that has already kind of come up is a brownfield is an underutilized property. So, there are people that have buildings that people might not think look nice, but that's where the person's business is. That's not a brownfield. That is currently a utilized facility that does not qualify. A brownfield can be something where if you have a property that is part of it is a brownfield and you are using part of it, then it's being underutilized and you could clean up and develop the other part, or it's a property that's being completely not used. And so then you can research that one as well.
But to Commissioner Webb's question, so it can be updated and amended, the brownfield list, okay?
Yeah, this list was just kind of people going through saying, well, that used to be a gas station or whatever the case may be. We don't know. We will be reaching out to these property owners. We don't know if they even want to participate because they might just be like, no, I don't want to sell my property to develop it for these purposes, because ultimately the property would have to be developed. It's not to just clean up properties. And so, so there might be some who are not interested, and then there will be some who, have said, hey, I would like to see about this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Webb's got a follow-up.
Another question is that if, it's $500,000, right? And the $500,000, I assume, is being spent for the public outreach, for, okay.
Yeah.
And also for the cleanup?
Yeah, so it's not all of the cleanup. It's not all of the cleanup. It's the phase 1 and phase 2. There's certain steps. And then what it will also do is then once certain things are identified, then that will help the property owner then apply for additional grant funding to do more of that work. This is the initial assessment work to be completed.
Okay, so what is our goal? Is our goal to identify X numbers of properties? Or, what are we after?
Yeah, so ultimately, in working with Stantec, like I mentioned, this does account for the outreach, and it accounts for working with Stantec and Colpack. And then the assessment work that has to be done by Stantec. And so it usually, depending on the properties, but it'll usually fund 10 to 12 properties to be cleaned up or to be assessed for cleanup. And then that will get you to the point where then you'll be able to help those property owners apply for the additional grant funding to do the cleanup work. So that way, these properties would then be feasible to develop for housing or business purposes.
But they wouldn't be cleaned up yet?
Well, the grant funding would help to get them to that next phase, yes.
All of a sudden, it seems like an awful $500,000 seems like an awful large amount of money to simply identify potential properties.
Well, there is some assessment work, and that assessment work, if this grant funding wasn't available, the property owner would have to pay for that work to be done themselves. For example, when the county has looked at property, when we looked at property out at the Sort Yard, that we had to do phase 1 and phase 2, and that cost us about $25,000.
Right.
So it does help, if you have properties, and that is a barrier to the property owner wanting to be able to develop it, this is an opportunity for them to have this additional funding, and then helping them to get additional grant funding to do further cleanup work.
Yeah, I agree. Commissioner Toyoka.
Well, just offer something to help clarify for Commissioner Webb and all. It's just, these phase one and phase two inspections on these potential properties, you know, like you said, can be very expensive, depending on what they're looking for, what the potential hazard might be. I mean, we've spent $50,000-$60,000 on a phase two alone, depending on how many borings, how many testings you have to do. So, you know, when you look at the 500,000, it's like, oh, you gotta be very selective, because that's not gonna go far. You might have, you know, half a dozen projects and you're done. So that's it. But I think the key component, with this is that, you know, you purchase a property for development, whether it's housing, whether it's, you know, some, you know, community project, whatever, and there is an environmental impact, the property owner is held harmless as far as fees and impacts. So that is a key, because, you know, you buy a property, you don't know, and I could look at, you know, tons of money in environmental. Well, this allows that to be held harmless. So, and then if you're offering assistance for those expensive inspections, then it makes it feasible for those housing projects, for those things. So, but I think, you know, as you were saying, it's got to be very selective, because that $500,000 is not a lot of money and will not cover very many projects.
Right. Any other comments, questions? Good points. Commissioner Thompson.
Commissioner Teoka, is that hard-earned, personal, painful experience you just recited to us? Well, you know, that's part of what makes it useful as a governing body, when we come together and we bring those bits of information. So, I personally have hopes that site at the junction, that something wonderful can happen there that is tsunami safe and involves a transit center and affordable housing. Commissioner Webb, you could have some fun there. You know, it gives us a big opportunity. I'm delighted that you're doing this. I'm delighted Colpac is able to help. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments, questions?
No,
Any other comments from staff?
That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we've got 19 minutes that we can take before we start What is that list? No, we've got the list of the liaison assignments, so that'll go out. That's
Yeah,
okay.
I haven't sent it out yet.
Yeah, we'll get it out. Yeah, we'll do liaison, reports.
Flag salute, you and Commissioner Banks keep me from falling off the edge.
Okay. Don't push your chair too far back.
We're unmuted now.
I know, that one time I thought you were gonna say. That's okay.
Yeah.
It was a quarter of an inch, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Are we all ready to go?
We're unmuted. We're ready to go.
All right. The Board of Commissioners is the governing body of Clatsop County and all county service districts for which this body so acts. And as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session, all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everybody here this evening. Teresa, can we have the roll call?
Chair Quila,
Here.
Vice Chair Banks. Here. Commissioner Toyoka,
Here.
Commissioner Webb. Here. Commissioner Thompson.
I'm here.
Thank you, Clerk of the Board. And then we have the agenda approval at this time, and we do have an amendment to the agenda. We'll be adding item 7A, and which is a request to be included in the emergency declaration due to homelessness to the agenda this evening, the business agenda.
Move to approve as amended.
Second.
Okay, move to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. First item is a proclamation for Black History Month. It's on page 28, and Amanda Rebencheck will be here to present on this. Amanda?
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Amanda Rappenchuk, Management Policy Analyst. So I'll go ahead and read off the informational summary. Black History Month is a month-long commemoration of African American history and achievement. This commemoration began as Negro History Week in 1926 and was the creation of Black historian Dr. Carter G. Woodson. In 1976, the celebration was expanded to the entire month of February and was recognized nationally by President Gerald Ford.
Thank you, Amanda. And we have a requested action here to approve the resolution. Do I have that?
I would move that. No, sorry.
Go ahead.
So I'm from Detroit. I just want to move that motion.
Excellent.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve resolution in order proclaiming February 2023 to be Black History Month and authorize the chair to read, then sign the proclamation. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. I'll read the proclamation. In the matter of proclaiming the period from February 1, 2023 through February 28, 2023 to be Black History Month. Whereas the terms Black and African American refer to individuals with African ancestry who were born in or immigrated to the United States. And whereas the settlements which became the United States have benefited from the achievements and labors of its Black residents for more than 4 centuries. And whereas Black people began arriving in what is today Clatsop County as part of the earliest arrivals of non-Indigenous peoples, including York of the Lewis and Clark Expedition in 1805 and members of John Jacob Astor's party in 1811. Whereas Black people have been continuous members of Clatsop County's business, military, and cultural communities for over 175 years. And whereas Black History Month is a national celebration of the contributions and cultural heritage of people of African descent in every part of the United States. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that Clatsop County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim February 1st, 2023 through February 28th, 2023 as Black History Month in Clatsop County, and invite all community members, businesses, and local agencies to join in this month of observance and celebration honoring the history and contributions of people of African descent, dated this 8th day of February, 2023, Clatsop County Board of Commissioners. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Next item is the business from the public. So this is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation on any item on the agenda, except for public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are any members of the public signed up to speak?
No, they're not.
Okay. And no one here?
no one in the audience.
Okay, no one here or virtually. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent calendar. We've had an opportunity to review the consent calendar prior to the meeting. Any questions, comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Move in second to approve the consent calendar as presented. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll start with the Commissioner's liaison reports. And we'll start from this end with Commissioner Toyoka.
Well, thank you. I apologize, everyone. I was gone last week, but I was invited to be a groomsman at my cousin and best friend's wedding. So it took me out of the country for a few days, so remiss in my commissioner duties, but honored to be there for him. He was an Army veteran, and as a Marine veteran, we have that common core, and it was great to celebrate his union. The only thing I would like to say is on when you read the Black History Month proclamation, and I think back to my Marine Corps days, and we didn't want to be called Asian Americans, African American, or any of those subcategories. We were Americans, first and foremost. And if we wanted to be in a category, we were American Marines. We were a brotherhood, and we would not be subdivided. So that always sticks in my heart, sticks in my head. When people say Asian American, African American, I always reject that and say, nope, we're American. But all respect to my brothers in the Marines, and I just had to bring that up.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Toyoka. I appreciate that. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I call to my fellow commissioners' attention an annual letter that comes to us from the Parks and Recreation Committee, which, as you've heard me say for the last 4 years, is one of my great pleasures in serving on this board. It's a report about how this is one of the most active committees that I'm involved with, and it's very exciting to see how we have a new member who's the chair now, and we're doing some wonderful work. I would like to point out one of the issues that this committee considered this year that I thought was very interesting. There's a property that is part of the Cullowhee Lake Park system that is the county park there. And I think that originally it was a racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
Old times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I remember.
Rodeo.
I mean, like a horse racetrack.
Yeah.
Yeah. And occasionally we get approached by people who want to do something with that. It's a pretty tasty morsel of land right off of 101, so it's pretty attractive. And we got a proposal from a resident of the city of Seaside, actually, who wanted to develop a BMX track. Now, I didn't know what a BMX track was. With 3 grandsons, I think I'm going to learn it pretty quick. But and we considered it for many months, actually. And finally, the committee decided to basically say no to it. And there were several issues. An access road that is a residential road, and because our neighbors at Cullowhee Park are so patient with the activities that go on there, the committee just decided not to do it. And of course, the big event this year was the opening of the Marine Park in Westport. Also, in addition to that, I attended a couple of weeks ago a marvelous presentation by Pat Corcoran, who is our former extension coastal hazard mitigation person.
Yeah.
Who is an expert on tsunamis and has modeled the tsunami inundation zones throughout the county. And he gave an absolutely fabulous presentation, not just about the science of it, but also about how to get ready for a tsunami. And I'm going to be meeting soon, I hope, with our emergency manager. Did I do it? I always sing to him when I talk to
well,
him.
sure, we got plenty of time.
He's a Tar Heel born, a Tar Heel bred, and when he dies, he'll be a Tar Heel dead.
I love that.
If I did it,
I am so glad we did that, good.
But I think maybe it's after
It's all
watching Pat's presentation, I think it was very, very helpful in terms of our messaging about a potential earthquake and tsunami. And I think maybe we need to kind of get out there with some of this information, because I was astounded. It was part of the Fort George Thursday night call. I was astounded. There was standing room only. I couldn't believe the interest on the part of citizens, but also at the lack of information that people had. Stunned by that, and so was Pat, about getting our messaging out. We had a lot of questions about CERT, which, we know is stronger in some parts of the county than it is in others.
Yeah.
And so I think we're gonna, a couple of old Tar Heels are gonna get together and talk about this, I think, about maybe incorporating a couple of those issues. But in general, I wish that all of our advisory committees gave us a letter every year, because anyway, it lets you know that these folks are working really hard.
Yeah, it's nice to have an annual report.
And the other thing, also speaking of those Thursday night talks, we have been approached by one of the members of, I don't know if from Wahkiakum County, which is the other side of the Westport Ferry. And the Westport Ferry is about to be 100 years old in 24 or 5, I can't remember, I think it's 5. And would like to know if there's interest on the part of Clatsop County in a celebration together.
Yeah.
So we will put that on our list of things to talk about.
I think that's great.
Thank you, I think that's
Yeah.
all.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. Commissioner Banks.
It's been a busy couple weeks. So it started with a CFTLC executive session in regards to legislation coming before our legislators and Senate. And I was cautious in my vote, mainly because the 3 bills up that would impact the forest trust lands are not really well developed yet. And so a lot of it was neutral with amendments, or neutral, or just, it's a wait and see. And I feel like AOC is in that same position right now with the wait and see, because SB 90 has no verbiage right now. It's just a bill. And the other 2 bills, it's a wait and see. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that I was pretty cautious in my vote in that regard. The Department of Forestry reached out to me, Mike Wilson, from Salem, reached out to me to give us our new IP numbers, for Clatsop County, and there's a huge departure from their earlier projected numbers that they were giving to the Board of Forestry. And so the IP numbers for the state of Oregon under the ACP prior to this moment was 225 million board feet. The new numbers are projected for the state of Oregon to be at a low of 165 million board feet. And so that's a huge departure from the last 3 years of discussions. And I had to have a really deep internal discussion with myself in just regards to the Board of Forestry, and a realization that they've been making decisions up until this point based upon their staff recommendations and their staff, you know, the numbers and projections that they were receiving from ODF. And though Clatsop County, myself, many among us knew that those numbers were going to be not what was being portrayed, to have it actually solidified in black and white of Clatsop County receiving a low of 48 million board feet per year projected for the next couple of years, starting in 2024, and potential of a downfall of that, was a little heart-rending for me to be on the receiving end of that discussion, even though I knew it was kind of coming. And so, reminding myself to have grace with the Board of Forestry and their decision-making, and understanding that my position as a commissioner, I take my staff's recommendations and I take the information that they give me at face value, and so I know that they were doing the same thing, even though there was a lot of white noise around them telling them that those numbers would be different. On that note, I'm asking taxing districts and community members to engage, because it is a very real number now. It's in black and white. We are going to be receiving a 35% reduction in our timber revenues, and that is unless the Board of Forestry changes their mind. Their next meeting is in March. Could they change their mind? Yes. Am I hopeful that they do? Yes. Not because I don't want an HCP for our county, but because the numbers are not playing out. I feel if, thinking on the environmental side, if they were given a set of numbers for environmental obligations, and then they found out at the end of a process with new modeling that that environmental number had a 27% deficit of what was promised at the beginning of the plan, I would hope that they would have turned around and said, start over. So in regards to the economics and social impact, I'm hopeful that they'll take that same perspective that they would on the environmental side and say, stop, go back, do it again, start over. Because again, I've never been against having an HCP for our county or for state lands. This one is a gut punch, and it is going to be hard for our community to overcome. That's not the happy news. I have happy news. It's a good news, bad news night here. So then I proceeded to talk to taxing districts, had some great conversations, have some pretty good solid numbers. You know, Hampton affiliates, Lindsay Davis and Laura Wilkinson have been very helpful in helping run numbers and graphs, and just have been a huge assist for me in that regard. Moving on to later in the week, Clatsop Clash. That was awesome. That was pretty epic. That was a turner at the very last, little bit. It was unexpected. Hey, I went only because my daughter danced at halftime. So, but it was interesting. I was like, wow, good job, guys. You each have been able to win now. Seaside's won, Astoria's won. Yay, happy news. No, okay, never mind. So Clatsop Clash was an amazing community event to participate in and purchase tickets for something I'm not sure I won or not won. Yeah, who knows. And then moved on to, I keep a list in my calendar. The Fair Board meeting. Welcome. How was your first night? Thumbs up? Okay. So Callie Linder was elected as our new Fair Board chair, which is kind of fun. And I think that their meeting went off without a hitch, and I have to say their agenda was wonderfully robust and wonderfully written, and high fives all around. So I was impressed with our newest staff member and the engagement level and just the goal setting that's going to come. I was able to update them with there's a fairground bill currently at legislature. Our lobbyist is engaging on. It would be great to have more money coming into our fairgrounds. And so I hope that I haven't talked to county manager yet, but I would hope that we actually, engage more heavily and possibly write a letter, if it comes to fruition and if that bill keeps moving forward in the process. It would just be nice to have more lottery dollars for our fairground. Other than that, I had to sadly miss the watershed meeting because I had to get my eyes checked. I need glasses. That's it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Begg. Mr. Thompson.
Well, thank you. Well, I had a Fair Board experience this week too, because we shared a table. The Fair Boards met this week in Salem, and Patrick Singh collected about 20 county commissioners from around the state. Clatsop County was in the house. We were seen. We were welcomed. I have to tell you, I wept when they showed the film about the Golden Siskiyou County Fair, because of the wildfires. They couldn't have it in Siskiyou County, California. They were invited up across the Oregon line into Myrtle Point. And they raised $1.2 million for those young people.
Wow.
That was cool. Money's cool, right? We like that. But what moved me to tears was the film they ran that showed the expressions on the faces of those young people who saw that they were held by their community to take all of the kids and all of the livestock across that state line so that their hard work could come to fruition. That's why we're here. I mean, you say, oh yes, it's the kids. The look on the determination, the fear, and the love all mixed on the faces of those. I mean, it was incredible. Didn't you? You probably weren't crying, but I cried. It was beautiful. It was a good reminder of why we're here. I continue to go to AOC meetings so that Clatsop County is represented. We exist there, and we are starting to be effective collaborative partners. When we look at, for example, the wildland-urban interface that our county managers, emergency manager is looking into, we've got a situation. When we look at timber revenue, Commissioner Yamamoto has the data. Tillamook County gets 32 cents of every dollar. All the rest of it is distributed to schools, to law enforcement, to hospitals. This is a community devastation of public service that is projected to happen. And I would say there are a variety of potential habitat conservation plans. The question is, which one does the best job to balance and harmonize all of the kinds of needs and benefits, all of the costs that we all share? So I hope that we can come together as a board and continue to be unified as we support the essential revenue for essential community services in Clatsop County. So we'll be working on that. I'm trying to get involved with fire defense boards, rural fire defense boards, and public safety. So I've been talking to the sheriff about coming to talk to us so that we as commissioners and the public has the opportunity to hear what's happening on the ground from a law enforcement point of view and from a firefighter point of view and from an emergency management point of view. Because, Commissioner Webb, it's been 10 years since Stogami paid me real money. Again, I like money, to get out those tsunami inundation maps. People forget things in 10 years. And it just becomes matter of fact or ignored. It collects dust in the back of the closet. We have fires, we have floods, we have storms, we have tsunamis. And our emergency staff has done a great job of continuing, whether it's getting the certification. Every time we come into Clatsop County, there are all of those signs that remind us that we are aware, but it needs to be refreshed. It needs to be current. It's dependent on the community relationships that we have, which ties into the last thing that I'm thinking about, in terms of meeting with the District 7 commissioners from Columbia, Tillamook, and Lincoln counties, we're meeting again to talk about what about short-term rentals. Lincoln County proposed a cap that would reduce their short-term rentals by 80% eventually. I said, Commissioner Hall, how does your economy recover from that? That's not clear. Commissioner Scar and Commissioner Hall were agreed we're looking at dueling lawsuits at some point, most likely, because folks love to litigate. I mean, it's part of what we do. We hope it never happens. We do the best we can to create public policies that reduce the urge to litigate, but some people want to. It occurs to me, and I'm moving forward talking with Ariane Colombo from had some economic analysis so that we could say, all right, here's the cost of various scenarios on our tax base. Here's the anticipated effect on housing, because we have people thinking that they are experts. I would rather have qualified, impartial experts give us policy advice and price tags for various courses of action. So I don't know how that will turn out, but that's what I'm thinking of. At AOC, I waved my regular flag, which is, could we please look at all of the public services in Oregon and what's needed and what's the price tag? So they know that's Leanne Thompson from Clatsop County talking, because that's the flag I wave with some regularity. That's what we do here, and that's the model we bring to Salem. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. And I appreciate both your comments on the HCP. Certainly, that's going to be a topic for us, a lot in the near future. And the idea of a balanced HCP is what we're all hoping for. So, well said. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah. When is the next Region 7 meeting?
It's not a District 7 meeting yet, because we're still, it's one commissioner from each of the District 7 counties, so we can noodle about stuff.
Oh, so it's not a formal...
It's not a formal meeting. It's just people kind of tearing their hair out saying, holy cow, what are we going to do about these? But as soon as there's a meeting, I'll be happy to let you know. And let me ask you if I could, I see that your Rec Lands Committee invited us all. I appreciate that. Do you have a location for that meeting?
It tends to move around. So what I can do is ask them to send
invite
notices to all the commissioners.
If they send an invitation to all of us, I appreciate that, because it is important, because what is it? All work and no play, and I'm getting duller every moment. Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, it's nice to have all of these things on our calendar so we all know what's going on. And thank you, Commissioner Webb and Commissioner Thompson, for that. You set a pretty high precedent now with your serenade. Now we're all going to have to be thinking about songs that we're going to have to perform during our liaison reports. You don't want to hear from me.
All I've got is the Beaver Fight song. That's it.
Well, you got company.
That's right. So I attended my first NOAA meeting, which is like drinking through the fire hose when you haven't been to any of these. And I do appreciate all that everyone on that staff is doing. I appreciate the hard work that Commissioner Webb has done on that board. In fact, you were involved in the first kind of the big news of the day was the approval from the Historic Landmarks Commission on January 24th for the revised design of the Owens Adair building. I know you were at that meeting, had a lot to do with it, and that was a big win for everybody at NOAA. We also had a couple of resolutions. First one was updates to the Housing Choice Voucher Administrative Plan, and then we also had the approval to solicit public comments for the fiscal year 2024 Annual Public Housing Agency Plan. A couple other things on the developments, the Broadleaf Arbor, so the residents will be moving in soon there. And of course the Trillium House, which I know that's been a big project that you've been involved in. I know that they've made a lot of progress on the construction of that. And I look forward to getting a tour, and Commissioner Webb, you and I can do a tour together there and take a look at it. And then we also got an update on the leasing of the NOAA properties. I know their goal is to have 90% occupancy by June 2023. They're making some progress. I think that Gable Park was one that they were really focusing on, getting, more occupancy there, and that's happening. But it was a great meeting, and you've got, a really good group there that's working hard to try to meet the need, in, Clatsop, Columbia, and Tillamook County. So appreciated being a part of that. And I'll be meeting with Commissioner Webb and getting some more background, so I'm ready and prepared for the next meeting. And with that, I will go ahead and conclude the Commissioner Liaison reports, and we'll move to the Assistant County Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Just a reminder that this Friday at 1 p.m. is the ribbon-cutting ceremony out at the jail. And so I know that some of you have been able to be there on a tour, but we just went last week, I believe, with the department heads, and everything is really starting to come together. So I got a text today, and the massive elk head is now hanging in the lobby area. So so it all is coming together very nicely. So 1 p.m. on Friday.
You might be from Clatsop County.
That's great. Okay. County Council, do you have anything? Nope. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to the business agenda this evening. We have the item 6, dissolution of Skipanon Water Control District per ORS 198.345, subset 2, on page 43 of our agenda. And I'll turn it over to our County Counsel, Anthony Pope.
All right, thank you, Chair. The issue before the Board of Commissioners tonight is, shall the county initiate dissolution proceedings for the Skipanon Water Control District? On January 18th, the county received formal notification from the Secretary of State's office that the Skipanon Water Control District has not filed required reports for 3 consecutive years. Under ORS 198.345, the county is required to initiate proceedings to dissolve the district within 30 days of receiving that notice. This motion will initiate the dissolution proceedings and direct staff to prepare the financial statements for the district as required by ORS 198.345, subsection 2, and to set a public hearing. And I just want to reiterate to the board, this isn't a vote tonight to dissolve the district. This is just to begin the proceedings, allowing the staff to prepare the necessary financial reports and to call a public hearing where we would have that discussion and that vote.
Okay. Thank you, County Counsel. Any questions or comments? Any questions for County Counsel?
Yes.
Commissioner Webb?
I guess I have a background, especially for Commissioner Trioka, whose district is sort of, merges into some of this area, that this is not a hostile takeover. This is an example, actually, of something that I think is, I wish we had the resources and the time to address, which is so many of our special districts are struggling for membership and resources to do what they were put in place to do. I think maybe we're looking at something that is almost a passé form of our government in Oregon. And I wish maybe in our strategic planning we could begin to address the issues of, of some of the, we have diking districts, we have, we just have so many of these special districts. And this was a case where the group voluntarily just said, we don't have the person power anymore to keep doing this.
Yeah.
And I think it was wonderful that the county stepped up, actually, and got an agreement with the city of Warrenton to take over one of, what is it? It's the 8th Street Dam, right?
Yeah.
And the weir in Colby Lake. And so we are, one of the first things I learned as a commissioner is that when special districts fail, they go to the county. And so this is a case where we had to step in and make the proper arrangements. And I fear that we're going to be facing increasing responsibilities to do this because of our small.
Yeah.
So it's as I say, it's not a hostile takeover. It's the fact that they didn't file their annual report for 3 years is because they knew that that's what they had to do in order to be decertified or whatever the word is. So anyway, so that's a little bit of history on.
I think that's an important clarification, that this was initiated by the members of the district. Go ahead.
Commissioner Webb raises an important point, and one I've been concerned with for some time, which is special districts in Oregon. Special districts perform, as you know, colleagues, essential public services in a way that is designed to be both effective and efficient. When the collective will fails for whatever reason, then what happens? So I think it is important as a statewide issue. I think it's important for water districts. I think it's important for fire districts, the levee districts. I think it needs to be something that some angel in the legislature looks into. I tried to interest Senator Johnson, and she wasn't interested in that. I won't quote her on that, but she was not interested. If anybody knows a friendly legislator who has a mind for complex issues, I've tried to interest Senator Frederick in that, and he's not interested either. His language is a little different. It's extremely challenging. I don't know if we look at LOC and AOC to have some kind of joint special group or whatever, but somebody's got to do this work at some point. And if we can be forward-thinking again and look at developing collaborations so that essential public services remain efficient and effective, I think that would serve our constituents. So I'd like us to consider that. It may be in a strategic plan, because we don't have enough in our strategic plan, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other questions, comments?
Well, just,
Commissioner Toyoka?
reading this, I never looked at it as a hostile takeover. I think it was a willful dissolution, and this is the administrative cleaning up and doing what is proper. But, if you look kind of beyond that, I think as our county and, as we grow as a society, all those localized services are becoming more centralized. And so we're going to see more of this, I believe, as our capacity, and our services become more centralized. We're going to see a lot of these smaller special districts voluntarily go away, because they're going to be serviced by a larger, community service pool. So I think it's not the first, it won't be the last, but I think it's kind of the way it's going to happen for these essential services.
Yeah.
Commissioner Webb?
Could
Yeah.
were you finished? I'm sorry.
I said to a degree.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but to a degree.
Yeah. Because
there are certain things, dikes and this and that will never be outdated, but
Right.
I think it's something we'll continue to see.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Toyoka. Commissioner Webb, you had a comment?
I think that I watched this for 25 or 30 years in the Portland area, and it's too bad that our county manager isn't here to participate in this discussion, because he's a real expert about the urbanization of rural counties, having been in Washington County for so long. And I think it's the kind of thing, I'm not so much, I think it's not so much centralization of services, it's just that services change over time as places urbanize. And I remember the folks in rural, I guess that actually would be Clackamas County, who were on their tiny farms, but wanted the snow plowed in front of their roads. And so it's a matter of, some of us who are trained in government talk about urban versus rural. Well, there's a whole lot, especially in this right now, there's a whole lot of melding of rural areas into more urbanized places.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's probably, the issue. And especially if we ever have the money to provide infrastructure for urbanization.
Yeah.
God help us. Anyway, I think it's something that we need to begin to talk about. And I think it's particularly relevant as we search so desperately for land on which to build housing. Something that is not in the distant future. I think it's something we've got to start dealing with pretty soon.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb.
Great discussion.
Good discussion, I agree. Do we have a motion?
I move to initiate dissolution proceedings for the Skipanon Water Control District as required under ORS 198. I'm sorry.
Second?
Okay, 198.345. I should have given that to you, I apologize.
Okay. Moved and seconded to initiate dissolution proceedings for the Skipanon Water Control District as required under ORS 198.345. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. And I'll go ahead and read the resolution. In the matter of a resolution initiating procedures for the dissolution of the Skipanon Water District, whereas Amy John, Audit Manager for the Oregon Secretary of State, sent a county correspondence dated January 18th, 2023, and whereas this correspondence indicates that the Skipanon Water Control District has failed to provide the Oregon Department of Revenue with the required financial documents as set forth in ORS 294.458 for at least 3 consecutive years, and whereas under the provisions of ORS 198.345, the county is obligated to initiate procedures to dissolve the district upon receiving the notice, as referenced above from the Oregon Secretary of State. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved and ordered proceedings to dissolve the Skipanon Water Control District pursuant to ORS 198.335 to 198.365 are initiated. Clatsop County is directed to begin obtaining the information required for a financial statement in accordance with ORS 198.350, and once prepared and within 60 days of the notice received January 18th, 2023, Clatsop County will file the financial statement with the clerk. A public hearing will be scheduled in accordance with ORS 198.355 to be set 21 to 30 days after the filing of the financial statement with the clerk, dated this 8th day of February 2023. Board of Clatsop County Commissioners. Okay. Next is the appointment to Clatsop Forestry and Wood Products Economic Development Committee. And I'll turn it over to our Assistant County Manager, Monica Steele.
Thank you, Chair. So the Clatsop Forestry and Wood Products Economic Development Committee was established by the Board of County Commissioners and functions as a committee of the Clatsop County 4-H and Extension Service District, Special District. The mission is to share educational information regarding wood and paper products, forest management, land use, and related issues with community leaders and the general public. Per the CFEDC bylaws, the board shall appoint new members for approval, and the composition of representatives from the forest sectors include wood products manufacturing, private industrial forestry, private family forest, public forest, OSU Extension Service, and other forest-related enterprises, and there is no set term for the membership. Dan Stark, who was the OSU Extension representative, has recently resigned from the committee, and the OSU Extension Service recommends Aaron Gross be appointed for this position. His application is attached, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Comments? Commissioner Thompson?
Go ahead. Well, you know, I don't know if I knew him first, but I just have to say he's an outstanding human being and a strong asset wherever he sits. So
Great.
Lucky, the committee is lucky to have him.
Super.
Thank you.
That's great. Commissioner Banks?
Just wanted to make note of appreciation for Dan Stark's efforts prior to his resignation, especially with the 6th grade forestry tour that we just kicked off again this year. A lot of work goes into that. Obviously, the extension provides abundant materials, support, et cetera, and so having Aaron Gross jump in is much appreciated. I've been able to participate in numerous meetings with him, and he is well-spoken and thoughtful and very well educated in the topic of discussion. And so I look forward to visiting with him more on CFEDC.
Great. Any other comments, questions? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the appointment of Aaron Gross to the Clatsop Forestry and Wood Products Economic Development Committee.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded to approve the appointment of Aaron Gross to the Clatsop Forestry and Wood Products Economic Development Committee. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay,
I'm sorry, I
motion
missed okay, thank you.
Yep, Commissioner Thompson. Okay. Next is the item that we amended to the agenda, which is the request to be included in emergency declaration due to homelessness. We've got the resolution in front of us, and our emergency director, Justin Gibbs, is here. He's a Tar Heel, by the way.
Too bad. I had to get a smart aleck comment in there, come on.
It's a Marine thing, yeah? Way too close to UNC.
No, I was a Yankee school, so.
But
It's not that bad. I get serenaded. So. Chair, Commissioners, thank you so much for the opportunity to provide some background on this item this evening. So since this appeared before the board on January the 25th, there's been a number of developments related to the state of emergency for homelessness. The process is kind of being developed to meet the governor's vision for this particular emergency. So we're kind of having to have anticipation and foresight to kind of be responsive to this particular declaration. So as soon as the resolution was signed by the board, we began to work with the Oregon Department of Emergency Management to submit the resolution for consideration by the governor. Through that process, we learned that they were developing criteria for counties that were requesting inclusion, but also trying to work through how those requests would be submitted. So I kind of had a vision for what that would look like based on, you know, how typical emergencies work. But as we all know, this doesn't really fit that model, as it's not acute. It's more of a chronic systemic issue. So it's landed, since it's not a response, it's more of a recovery type. It fits a recovery model. There's funding programs and housing. It's landed within the recovery section of emergency management. So they're having to figure out, well, does this go through our normal portal, which is where, you know, the governor was kind of sending us to submit requests and things, and they were trying to determine, is that where we want it to go? And they were directing people to the recovery emails. So there was kind of confusion around that. So we were having to talk that through with emergency management. Meanwhile, the governor's office was working with Housing and Community Services to develop these criteria. So we worked with emergency management, got the resolution uploaded. We created an incident that's associated with Clatsop County. So what that does is it provides us the opportunity, once we are included, if that's granted, if we're deemed to meet the criteria, then that'll be associated with the state incident. So we'll be set up then to make requests to the state. So that process is kind of married to the state process. So all of that will be in place. It also provided an opportunity for us to upload documentation like the letters of support that are being submitted from the city. So that worked really well for us to submit that documentation. So we got all that in place while we were awaiting further information. And then on the 30th, we got the criteria that had been developed. One really good thing is when the emergency was first released by the governor, announced by the governor, we keyed in on the fact that it was based on the continuum of care. Because of that, we realized that we had an organization in the county that had a very strong relationship and had, with the rural continuum of care, and that's Clatsop Community Action. They had actually been receiving funding through the rural continuum of care since the 90s. So they knew the demographic information that was likely going to be used to establish those criteria. So we reached out to Clatsop Community Action and just requested, hey, what types of demographics do you utilize to get grant funding through the continuum of care? So we got PIT reports from 2022 that outlined, unsheltered population demographics, and that set us up really well to be responsive when these criteria were released. So we were actually 50% there when OEM released the criteria on the 30th. So the criteria that were released were an unsheltered population greater than 30 households, and an unsheltered rate greater than 80%. So that report that we had received from Clatsop Community Action already outlined the household information. The only thing we were lacking was a report that showed us the sheltered population. We just didn't have that information, so we could then calculate what our unsheltered rate was. We needed to know what our sheltered population was. Well, we have limited programs in Clatsop County that provide consistent housing, sheltering. So, but we were able to obtain that. They actually have a program through HUD that is specific to them, or not to their particular organization, but they have access to it. So they were able to pull that information and get it to me, perform the calculation, and found out our unsheltered rate is 96.7%, which far exceeds, the 80% that was required. So through that anticipation and foresight, we were able to turn this around really quickly and get it back before you tonight, and we'll be able to get that submitted tomorrow, and get that back before, emergency management and the governor for consideration. But I definitely would really like to thank, the county manager and the staff and all of you for your diligence and responsiveness and all the hard work that's going into preparing this and adapting to kind of this ever-changing landscape as we try to get included in the state of emergency. So, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Director Gibbs. And I think it's fair to say, this is what the county manager says, this is an iterative process.
Yes.
We always like to say it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate your navigating, this required a lot of diligence to kind of navigate through the process and also connect up with CCA and to get, the data that we needed. And of course, our county manager and assistant county manager participated in that as well. But yeah, this is a lot of work, and thanks to you for sticking with it and getting this so quickly to us in a timely way that we can be, I think we were the first ones to submit the resolution the first time around, so this is great. Yeah, I appreciate all your hard work on it. I know we've got some people that want to comment.
I think Commissioner.
I just wanted to thank you, personally, and the staff, county manager, and all of staff. you know, and one comment you made is that, you know, the diligent work was to fit the governor's vision. I think it's 180 degrees from that. I think your efforts, rural Oregon's efforts, have helped redefine the governor's vision to include all of Oregon.
Yeah.
So I think you got it backwards, but to your effort, you're working for all of Oregon, and I really appreciate that.
Really true.
That's well said. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Commissioner Thompson?
Don't mess with Commissioner Teoka, I'm telling you. So what was interesting to me was 11 counties were included in the governor's original declaration, primarily urban counties, which we noticed, didn't we? Yes. And so did the rest of the state. And then, oh wait, we'd better think about this. And even, I spoke with a commissioner who was one of those 11 originating counties, and people are biting their tongues. Now, we understand that there's a learning curve in every new job, right? There's a learning curve, great. So you and the rest of the staff defined capable and nimble in response to the learning curve of the leadership in Salem. I hope we can continue to do that. I hope that next time, lesson was learned. And so whatever we can do to support your good efforts, let us do that. Let us know what that is, how we can help you, because you've all done admirably. And it makes sense that it's a chronic emergency. Let's go forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Baines?
I'm very grateful for all of your efforts. I feel like it represents an effort to attain equity for rural counties in the state of Oregon. It's something that we're constantly having to seek and fight for, from the school level to healthcare to basically everything. Basically everything, especially social services oriented. And so I appreciate your efforts of trying to equalize the playing field for us, and also, you know, setting up kind of a structure for other rural counties to be noticed. I'm hoping that we can continue as a board to shout from the rooftops that we deserve equity too. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baines. Any other comments?
Well done.
Yep, well done. So we will need a motion to approve the resolution in order requesting to be included in the emergency declaration due to homelessness.
Okay. I move to approve the resolution in order for Clatsop County's request to be included in an emergency declaration due to homelessness to be read and signed by Chair.
Second, Commissioner Thompson.
Moved and seconded to approve the resolution in order requesting to be included in the emergency declaration due to homelessness and to be read and signed by the Chair. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Ready to read. It's a lengthy one, but important, so we need to read it. Clatsop County requests to be included in emergency declaration due to homelessness. Whereas Governor Kotek issued a homelessness state of emergency on January 10th, 2023, and whereas the state has identified criteria for a county to be included in the governor's state of emergency, including, number one, the unsheltered population must be greater than 30 households in 2022. And number two, at least one of the following is true. A, unsheltered homelessness increased by 50% or more between 2017 and 2022. And B, the rate of unsheltered homelessness in 2022 was 80% or greater. And whereas Clatsop County meets the criteria requiring the 2022 unsheltered population exceeds 30 households, the HUD 2022 point-in-time report captured 306 households without children, 255 households with only children, and 268 unaccompanied youth households. And whereas Clatsop County meets the criteria that the rate of unsheltered homelessness in 2022 was greater than 80%, as data provided in the HUD 2022 point-in-time report calculates a county rate of 96.7%. And whereas from 2017 to 2021, the number of people experiencing homelessness in Clatsop County increased by approximately 32%, And whereas nearly 900 individuals experienced homelessness in Clatsop County during 2021, representing 22.7 homeless per 1,000 population. And whereas Clatsop County has the highest per capita homelessness rate in the state of Oregon, and this rate is nearly double the next highest county. And whereas the city of Warrenton has the highest number of homeless youths in rural Oregon per the point-in-time count. And whereas homelessness in Clatsop County has caused and is threatening to cause widespread injury to people and property, human suffering, and financial loss. And whereas local jurisdictions and businesses have spent and continue to direct significant resources to address the impact of people experiencing homelessness, including but not limited to collecting and disposing of debris, garbage, waste, and biohazards to restore land to intended public purpose and use. And whereas Clatsop County has prioritized funding for homeless services as part of the American Rescue Plan Act funding strategy and the Clatsop County Strategic Plan. And whereas Clatsop County applied and was selected to participate in Project Turnkey 2.0 to expand the number and availability of emergency shelter beds. And whereas Clatsop County is overrepresented with the number of people experiencing homelessness and does not have adequate resources to address the critical services and infrastructure necessary to humanely serve this vulnerable population. And whereas ORS 401.165 empowers the governor to declare a state of emergency upon determining that an emergency has occurred or is imminent. And whereas the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners requests the governor find that the unsheltered homeless in Clatsop County has caused and is threatening to cause widespread injury to people and property, human suffering, and financial loss, and thus constitutes an emergency under ORS 401.025 subset 1. And whereas to reduce homelessness and its impacts, this declaration is necessary to expand local shelter capacity, to rehouse people experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and to prevent homelessness to the greater extent possible. And whereas Clatsop County and local jurisdictions do not have adequate resources to address this critical public health, public safety, and humanitarian crisis. And whereas Clatsop County meets the criteria established by the state for inclusion in the homeless state of emergency. And now therefore the Board of County Commissioners of Clatsop County requests the following. The governor, through Oregon Emergency Management, include Clatsop County in the state of emergency due to homelessness, and for Clatsop County to have access to all subsequent programs, services, technical assistance, and resources to address the homelessness crisis throughout Clatsop County, including municipalities. Adopted this 8th day of February 2023, Board of Clatsop County Commissioners, Mark Wheeler, Chair. Thank you very much, Director Gibbs.
Thank you.
For all your hard work.
Well done.
Well done. Next item is the ordinance 23-02 LADUC legislative amendments. It's on page 48 of our agenda, and then Gail Henriksen, our Community Development Director, will be presenting on this. Gail.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Board. Again, for the record, I'm Gail Henriksen, Community Development Director. Oregon Revised Statutes 197.646 requires that local governments update their comprehensive plans or their zoning and implementing ordinances whenever they make a change at the legislative level that affects land use law. And so between 2018 and 2022, we had several amendments that came forward, and the amendments that you see before you tonight are a result of those changes to ORS that we're required to adopt. Moving forward, we'll be doing this on an annual basis, so following the close of the legislative session this year, come the fall, you'll see us back here again with some more amendments, most likely. We did discuss these amendments with the Planning Commission back in October of last year. We also brought that before your board in a work session on November 2nd. And on January 10th, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend that your board approve the amendments as presented. And I'm here tonight to request that you conduct the first reading of Ordinance 2302, open the public hearing, take testimony, and then continue the matter to February 22nd. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Commissioner Tioga.
Mr. Henry, I always hate to be the thorn in your side, but question, how do we push back? With our current state of, we're fighting for housing, and a lot of the law duct restrictions, are hurting us. How do we, as a county, get concessions, amendments to certain law duct items to help us provide more available land properties for housing? I mean, we follow this, it's more of an uphill battle. I mean, I think we want to make it more available and time efficient for people to build that housing, and this will just slow it down again. Is there any way we could push back as a county on any of these?
I may defer to county council, but I know that, you have Commissioner Thompson, who has disappeared somewhere, but I know, and all of you are very active in AOC, so that's a starting point. You also have your legislative lobbying firm, PacWest, that you have reached out to. You have your strategic plan that you're in the process of finalizing. So these are items that you would want to discuss together as your board and with the county manager and with county council, and I will defer to him or to Monica if they have anything else to add.
Yeah, I was just going to say, once it's state law, we don't have a lot of, options as far as following it. So it does come down to the legislative process and going to, the state and having them change the laws. So that would be, my recommendation, like you said, through lobbying, talking to their representatives. Once it's state law, we're kind of bound to it.
Okay, Commissioner Webb?
Actually, I would point out that in the last couple of years, the legislature's changes to land use laws have actually encouraged. They've raised densities, they've raised a lot of requirements in urban areas, and they've become actually more amenable to the creation of housing. So I don't feel, in my 35 years of being a land use planner in Oregon, I think the situation for land use laws has actually gotten better. And also, I can also tell you that in my career, there have been very few occasions when people have been able to truly show me that zoning was anything other than a protection of life and safety. You'll hear a lot of complaints from people who don't like zoning laws, but in fact, I don't think any of us would want to live in a community that didn't have health and safety laws relating to construction of any facility. And so that's something I would never lobby for.
Do we have any other comments, questions? Anything for Gail? If we don't, then can we have the first reading by title only? Or do you want me to read that, or?
Do we need a motion?
No, there's no motion necessary.
So we're just going to have the first reading first, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Yeah, this is an ordinance adopting amendments to the Clatsop County Land and Water Development and Use Code to address legislative updates pertaining to land use regulations.
Okay, thank you, County Council. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance number 23-02. Does any commissioner have a conflict of interest to report? Okay, clerk of the board, are there any members of the public signed up to speak remotely?
No, there's not.
Okay, do we have anyone that's signed up to speak in person?
No, they're not.
Okay. No, we don't have any testimony. We'll go ahead and continue the public hearing to February 22nd, 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is the last item on the agenda. So do we have anything for the good of the order?
A round of songs? No.
As I said, set a big precedent now. All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Have a good night.